Hey everybody, Jamin here from Game Show, back with another vlog episode. So first things first, I'm going to be doing a little bit of traveling. I'll be out west, the western part of the United States. I live in Brooklyn. This is my apartment. This is my lovely bookshelf that my wife put together and painted. It's from IKEA. Surprise. She put a lot of love and care into this. Nonetheless, I'll be traveling out west. I'll be in San Francisco and Portland. So if you're in Portland on Friday, I'll be at Cheryl's on 12th, which is at 135 Southwest Washington Street from 5 to 6:30 p.m. And on Sunday in San Francisco, I'll be at Sightglass Coffee in the Soma neighborhood district of San Francisco. That's 277th Street from 2 p.m. to 3:30 p.m. I'll post all this information obviously in the description, but I'd love to meet you in person if you want to come out and say hello. If you want to bring a game that you've been working on and you want me to take a look at it, that's totally cool. If you have a question or you disagree with me about something and want to face me in person, that's totally cool as well. And obviously if you want to bring like your 3DS or PlayStation Vita or whatever and just play games together, I'm down with that as well. So I look forward to meeting you all in person. Again, information in the doobly-doo. Next up, the actual content of this week's vlog episode. So one of the things that has kind of been making its rounds this week has been the first-person sex sequence from Grand Theft Auto 5. It's part of this big transition that they're making from the third-person perspective in all of the previous games to the new ones for the Xbox One and for PlayStation 4. What it means is that you get a different view on Los Santos, and it's also a way for Rockstar to sort of change and create new perspectives on the game without having to fundamentally change or create new content or those sorts of things. So naturally, one of the things that people have done is have sex with prostitutes, because that's something that you've been able to do in all of the Grand Theft Auto games. Only this time you're doing it through the eyes of your particular character. So naturally, there's been a little bit of controversy about it. There's a tweet from this woman, Catherine Harbin. She was saying that GTA 5 features first-person sex with a prostitute, and she says, "I'm sad for everyone that will play the game." So there's this perspective that it's not just the fact that you can have sex with a prostitute, it's the fact that you're able to see it through your own quote-unquote eyes that somehow makes this more problematic. And so the question it raises is, are we more upset by the fact that it's a first-person perspective, or are we upset by it's something that's possible in the game at all? Because you get the sense that somehow this is because it's in first person, this somehow makes it worse. So let's back up a second. The sex scene, which I will not link to, is pretty, well, in my words, like, it's unconvincing. It's not profoundly different from what you might see in the third person view of the game. But I'm wondering whether the first person experience changes your relationship with embodiment to the character in the game. So if you look at other games in which you've been asked or required or can do really difficult things from a first person perspective, for example, the No Russian sequence, you'll notice, I think, that part of what people react to is the fact that you're seeing this through a character's eyes. So in No Russian, you're asked to, from Call of Duty Modern Warfare, it's a mission in which you're asked to kill a bunch of civilians while you're an undercover person. And obviously, sort of taking on the role of a terrorist, obviously is a really powerful, can be a very, very powerful sequence. But the two sort of problems, I guess, with the first-person sex sequence from Grand Theft Auto 5 is one, that it doesn't look particularly interesting in the sense that it's not any more realistic or graphic than any of the things you might see, frankly, on like network television. But the second is that it doesn't have control. So in the hot coffee scenario, which played the Grand Theft Auto San Andreas release from the PC version, in which you actually played a sex mini game, that was a situation in which the act of sort of performing sex was something that you could do. There were buttons to press. In this sequence, it's really just a cutscene in which you sort of make this decision and you sort of watch the action. You watch it sort of unfold. I think that the big thing we should get at is Mike made a great distinction. Your question about whether or not you think that the sex scene is morally reprehensible or not has a lot to do with whether or not you believe that avatars are yourself or are not yourself. And this is something that Mike got at in his Idea Channel episode from a year ago on being versus controlling your avatar. So the question he asks is whether you're merely controlling the characters that you have on screen or whether you are those characters. And Mike sort of presents these two sort of poles as actually having this sort of permeable layer in between, in which some instances we feel a deep emotional connection to a character who is not us, and in some in some instances, we feel a deep emotional connection to a character that is us. But sometimes there's distance when we're asked to do something that's really, really difficult. So in Spec Ops: The Line, for example, if you're killing civilians with white phosphorus, or doing something that's morally reprehensible, sometimes we create distance between ourselves and those characters because they're not things that we would actually do in real life. And Mike makes this amazing point that this is a powerful ability that games have, but oftentimes it's done in the service of things that aren't particularly interesting from a philosophical perspective. So this sex scene in Grand Theft Auto 5 would fall into that category. There's nothing really, there's not a commentary on the nature of prostitution, for example. It's just kind of this cold interaction between these digital characters. But what's more interesting is that we're not necessarily talking about the torture sequence or any of the other sort of maybe more problematic, morally problematic things that characters are asked to do in Grand Theft Auto, and whether or not playing the game in first person heightens our understanding or deepens our understanding of what those acts mean within the context of the game. That's probably a more interesting question. I think the violent aspects of Grand Theft Auto 5 come into a different perspective when you're playing them through first person than when you're through third person, because it goes back to Mike's original point. It challenges that perception that this character that you're playing is not some other person, but is actually you. In any case, those are my particular thoughts on it, and I'd love to hear yours, so please hash it out in the comments, and I'll see you all next week. And if you are in Portland or San Francisco, please check out the description. I'd love to meet you in person. All right, take care.